There is a hidden world where ancient evil weaves a modern mystery.
What's going on here? Is this some kind of...
Magic. The darkest magic.
They call it Little China.
Finally, we shall bring order out of chaos.
Hey everyone, it's Jonathan and welcome back to the Joncast. Today I'm joined once again by my friend Sam to talk about one of her favorite childhood movies, Big Trouble in Little China. This was not a movie I had ever seen before she wanted to show it to me a couple years ago, and after I watched it, I figured it would make for a great podcast, so here we are.
You ready, Jack? I was born ready.
This ended up being a way better movie than I thought it was going to be, because for some reason I had it in my head that this was some kind of a weird horror movie. I don't know why I thought that.
I think the cover art probably makes you think that.
Maybe. But I ended up actually really liking it.
It is like one of my family's favorite movies. Like literally, I grew up watching this movie. It was like a regular staple in my household.
It felt like a kid's movie, but not a kid's movie.
Yeah. Well, like my mom gave me a bunch of VHSs, and one of them was Big Trouble in Little China, and you can tell we watched that over and over. Like it's all falling apart, like the case is. The tape's fine, but I'm like, you can tell this had a lot of use in our house. Like I don't know how often it actually left the VHS player, because like I said, this was like one of the movies I grew up with that it's just in my brain. Like, what'd you watch as a kid? Big Trouble in Little China. It's like his action adventure flick. It's fun. It's got fantasy. It's got monsters. It's got Kurt Russell in it. You know, it's directed by one of my favorite directors. You know, this is John Carpenter. Like, it's just, this was a staple in my household.
It's kind of funny that I'm seeing now the things that Kurt Russell is, like, known for. Because I grew up with Kurt Russell movies, but it was his Medfield trilogy from Disney in the 60s and 70s.
Yep. See, and I grew up with Big Trouble in Little China and Escape from New York and a couple other ones. You know, it was like, for us, it was like the action adventure movies where he's kind of a doofus.
Mm-hmm. I will say, it's been a long time since I watched any of the Medfield movies, but the part where he's like in disguise and he's, what is it, a brothel that he goes into? I don't know what that place is.
Oh, in Big Trouble?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The place where he's disguised.
Yep.
I was like, this almost feels like his character from the Medfield movies.
And it could have been an homage to that. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
It wasn't the same, because he did have like a slight air of coolness, but he was also a science nerdy kid.
And that's kind of what he's playing when he goes there. He's got the glasses, he's got hair slicked back, he's wearing the blazer.
Yeah, it was like if he grew up and became even more nerdy.
Yeah, you're just like, sir, what are you wearing?
But him as the trucker persona, that does not feel like the character that I grew up with. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously he's playing a character, but when I have this image of Kurt Russell in my head, it's always that. And I guess now a little bit his character in Guardians of the Galaxy, but
right.
I guess it's nice to see that he has range.
Yeah, because like, I was just looking up his early filmography here, because I didn't know this, he voiced Copper in The Fox of the Hound.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. But yeah, he did, like I said, we watched him in Escape from New York, and then of course he's in my favorite horror movie, The Thing, which came out right before this did. And then, yeah, Big Trouble in Little China, Overboard, which is one of my mom's favorite movies, Tango and Cash, Captain Ron, Tombstone, which is one of my brother's favorite movies, where he plays Wyatt Earp, Forrest Gump, and Stargate. I love Stargate. That's such a great movie. But he was in so many of these action adventure movies.
Gump? I was a kid when I saw Forrest Gump. I don't remember that movie.
I watched it once, I think. You know, he was in Sky High.
Oh,
plays the dad.
Yeah.
You know.
I think when I watched Sky High, I did not realize that it was the same actor.
Well, because he's
so different.
Yeah, well, he's dressed like a superhero, so he looks kind of wonky. But yeah, this was like, you know, Kurt Russell. He's an action. Mm-hmm. You know, he's an action guy. He's in all these action movies, and he always plays the tough guy, or in this case, the tough guy who's a little clumsy.
He seemed like he was putting on the act. He seemed kind of dumb.
I think that's kind of the point. Like, well, the whole point of Big Trouble in Little China is that Kurt Russell thinks he's the main character, and he's not. He's not. Dennis Dunn as Wang Chi is the main character and the hero. But the way the movie follows Kurt Russell, he thinks he's the main character, and he's not. He's the sidekick.
It almost felt like it was a parody of a movie that it was a different movie. Like this was kind of putting a spin on or making fun of something else.
Well, I know the original plan for this movie was a Western, and it got changed, and John Carpenter wanted to do an homage to all the kung fu movies that he grew up watching. You know, all those kung fu movies, all those fighting movies. And
did those, like, I haven't seen much of that. Did they have a lot of exposition dialogue in those?
Most movies like that did, yeah.
Okay, because that was I think the thing that made it feel the most like a parody was somebody would come in and would have this long sentence explaining what's going on.
Yeah.
But it felt like they were parodying something because it didn't feel like something someone would actually say.
You watch any old Godzilla movie and like 90% of the movies expedition and stuff like that.
Okay.
Exposition.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it ended up, going from a Western, which is why the comic books that come after this are kind of a Western.
Okay.
And why he looks like he belongs in a Western, but he's in an Asian kung fu movie instead. And that kind of blends those two things because, John Carpenter wanted to kind of pay tribute to his movies that he loved and, all those just old kung fu movies, and which is why he went and found like every Asian actor he could find. It didn't matter if they were Chinese or Japanese or whatever. He didn't care. He's just like, he wanted every Asian actor he could find to be in the background to, have everybody he could just to... And when they reuse a lot of them, like sometimes you watch it and you're like, that guy died earlier. He's back. But, a lot of movies do that, though. Yeah. They reuse their extras.
So did he write this story, or was this story based on something?
I'm pretty sure he wrote it.
Okay. Because there was a lot of stuff happening. I was like, is this based on something specific in Chinese mythology?
Nope. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm not saying it's not, but I'm pretty sure most of it he came up with. It could be rooted in like some old myths and stuff. I'm not real familiar with like Chinese mythology, but some of it could be. But I know like the 3 storms he came up with because the main guy, there's thunder, lightning, and rain was the inspiration for Raiden in Mortal Kombat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the 3 storms. Always loved those guys growing up. Always thought Rain was kind of hot.
Which one was he?
The one with the long hair.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep.
The one that looks like a boy band Power Ranger in this movie guy.
Yeah. Like, oh, he's pretty. I like his hair. And plus, like, my grandpa was a trucker growing up, so I just always loved the truck in this movie because it's kind of its own little personality. And I love that it actually moves and sounds like a truck. So often you get movies where they have semi-trucks and they're quiet. No. They're quiet and they can't, like he cuts corners and, but he slides and the whole truck shakes and it's very loud and he can't get through places. Like semi-trucks are loud.
Yeah.
And they're big and they can't drift. You watch so many movies where they have semi-trucks come out of nowhere to run people over and I'm like, how did you not hear that? Like, you get a truck that these semi-trucks slam their brakes, the ground shakes. Like, they're out there.
Yeah.
So I always just loved the truck in this movie. It's a nice truck.
Yeah, I liked that was part of his character. Mm-hmm. It made him feel different than any other kind of character like that I've seen.
Yeah, it's his whole life. That's his business. It's the Pork Chop Express. He brings pigs to the market.
Is that what he was delivering?
Uh-huh. Yeah, his truck's the Pork Chop Express, and he was bringing pigs. Not saying that's all he hauls, but that's what he was hauling at the beginning of the movie.
Okay.
And it's like one of my favorite openings of any movie. Like, I love the rain. I love him on the CB talking I love the musical score, and then when he gets there, it's raining. All the people in Chinatown, they're gambling, they're buying produce, they're living their life. Just something about it. The way it's filmed, the cinematography, the music, just how there's so much life.
It felt real.
It felt real.
Even with all the weird stuff happening, it felt real.
Yeah, it felt like a real, like a real place. Like if you went there, this is exactly how it would look and how everybody would be acting. And, it's so natural. Like nothing's fake. Nobody's lurking around. Like they're just living their lives.
Yeah.
That's why I've just always loved the opening act of this movie.
So I'm assuming, since he probably wrote this himself, the Lords of Death Like, because the way they framed it, it was like a historical fact with these guys. But I'm assuming that this was not really based on anything.
Well, I mean, every group has gangs and stuff. So I'm sure somewhere there probably was, like Chinese gangs in Chinatown. It's just like how when the Irish came to New York, there were Irish gangs. I'm sure that it probably is just loosely based on something, and like the human trafficking thing, that still happens today. So
yeah.
I'm sure somewhere he got the ideas for that.
I think my favorite part of this movie was James Hong as Lo Pan.
Oh my God. He is just so great in this movie. He's great in every movie.
Yeah.
But him as Lo Pan, it's just, you see him as the little shriveled guy up in the wheelchair, and then you see him as like the god or whatever he's supposed to be, and you're just like, that's the same guy? You're just as confused as Jack Burton is. You're like, wait a minute. He's just so good. He is such a versatile actor, and he's just so amazing.
Yeah. Anytime he shows up in something, whether he's on screen or just a voice, I love his voice.
Yeah.
I love him. He's so great.
I've always loved Dennis Dunn, who's Wang Chi. Like, he's just so charismatic. He's funny, and he can fight, and he's smart, and he knows exactly what he's doing, throughout the whole movie. And he's just such a funny, and he's the main character, he's the hero of the day.
Well, part of me, like, this is just me speculating. I don't know anything for sure. It felt like Jack Burton as a character was kind of just thrown in there to capture like a white audience.
You can kind of look at it like that, but I don't
like his character for what he is does make sense. But I kind of wondered to myself, like, if this had been like actually set in China, would this have sold in America?
Right. Yeah. I know they always have like articles about like the white savior trope, and they're like, oh, Big Trouble, avoids that because Dennis Dunn's the hero. But I always feel like Jack Burton's there because he's an idiot and he didn't leave when he was told to leave. He wants his money from Wang Chi. He wants his truck back because he wouldn't let Wayne go to the airport by himself to get his fiance. Like, he's there and he's in trouble because he wouldn't leave.
Yeah.
And then it gets to the point where he's not going to leave because he's like, well, I should help my friend. But he still kind of masks it as, well, I want my truck back.
Yeah.
And through the whole movie, he's like, I want my truck back. But then he's actually like, well, no, I probably should. And then they get to the whole human trafficking thing and like all the girls that are kidnapped. And it's like, and then he starts to fall for Gracie. And he's like, well, now I have to stick around and help or just get in the way because of these other things, and he's just kind of dragged along at some point. Mm-hmm. But he, makes it look like he's charging in there head first.
Yeah.
Victor Wong, that's who I was going to say, as Egg Shen.
Oh, yeah.
I love that character so much.
Yeah, he was great.
He was just like as a kid, you were just like, I wish I knew somebody like this. This quirky guy who knows all these things and can make potions and like
I think
all this
he's
weird
part
stuff.
of why it felt like it might have been a kids movie, even though it's not really for kids.
Because he was in
just his character.
Wasn't he in Three Ninjas?
I wonder if that's why he seems so familiar to me. I haven't seen Three Ninjas in years and years, but I remember watching it a few times.
He was, yes, he was. It's right here, Three Ninjas.
Okay. So maybe that was where I was getting the kids movie vibe.
Yeah, because you see him and you think of Three Ninjas, but he was also in The Golden Child, which I think this movie went up against. It did. But anyway.
But yeah, everything with Jack Burton felt like not that he shouldn't have been there. It just felt like
he's our window into this world.
Yeah, and that he was kind of like a subversion of tropes.
Right. Well, because you also get Gracie in there, played by Kim Cattrall, and she's a white woman, and she's in this world, but she lives in this world already. Mm-hmm. She knows all the people. She knows the neighborhood. She knows who Lo Pan is.
She didn't feel as out of place as Jack did.
No, because like I said, she lives here. She knows these people. And she's a lawyer, so she probably has worked with people before. Yeah. And she was helping at the airport to... I don't know, she was bringing that girl in from China to like help her. I don't know if she was like helping her get her immigration status or what. It's not really explained just too much. That she helps bring people in who need to start a new life or something. Mm-hmm. So it's like she's already in this world because like they even know who she is. Like Wang Chi and his uncle and like the people and like Eddie at the Chinese restaurant, they all know who she is. And so, yeah, she's more like already in this world. And then, then you bring in Margot, her friend, who's a news reporter, who kind of like Jack, just kind of gets thrown in there along the way just because she wants to make a story out of it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Jack, he's like, yeah, he sticks out like a sore thumb. He's just there to be loud and annoying and try to boss everybody around when he has no idea. Like, if you can go on YouTube and find a supercut of Jack saying what? It's like throughout the whole movie, just like, what is this? What's going on? What's happening? It's like, because he doesn't know. I
mean, to be fair, that would probably be my reaction to half the stuff that happens to him in
that movie. And everybody else is just cool with it. And he's over there, what? Like, what's happening? So, yeah, it is fair to say that, yeah, Jack is, the white guy in the movie. Mm-hmm. But he's also just, he's Jack Burton.
Yeah. I mean, it works for this movie.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't that I was thinking, like, it should have been made without him. It just felt like, if that is how he started, like I said, I don't know. They made it work, and they made a good character out of him.
Well, and because I think he's there to subvert your expectations, because you think he's the superhero. He's the main character. He's the white guy. So he's the...
Well, they talked him up at the beginning like they owed their lives to him.
They actually filmed that after the movie was done and put it in there. It wasn't originally part of the script.
Because looking back...
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I wish it wasn't in there.
Because I didn't think about it the first time you and I watched it last year, whenever it was.
Yeah.
But watching it now for the podcast, knowing the rest of the movie, I was like...
Yeah,
really?
that was filmed later, and like it wasn't John Carpenter's decision. I think it was more of a studio thing. For some reason, they wanted that in there. I wish it wasn't in there. It doesn't really make a lot of sense.
No.
And if you ignore that part completely and then watch the rest of the movie,
it changes nothing.
It changes nothing. Like, and it doesn't make sense because he kills Lopan at the end because he's lucky, because it's the first piece of luck he's had through the whole movie was he gets to throw the knife back and it doesn't bounce off him. But yeah, it's like, well, we owe our lives to Jack. It's like, well, actually, Egg Shen, you're the kind of, you and Huang Chi are the heroes of this movie.
Jack would not have had any idea.
No, not Jack. So yeah, that kind of messes up. I don't like that they added that in there. I wish they would like do a director's cut and take that scene out. Because Jack is framed to be like the main character hero, but it's Huang Chi's the main character. We're just following Jack, who's following him.
Yeah. I was watching it now. I was just confused by that scene.
Yeah, it's a weird scene. I like I said, it makes sense that they added that in later, because I'm like, we don't need this scene in here.
Yeah, it would have made more sense if they'd added something to the end that came back to that guy, whatever he was, a lawyer or whatever.
Well, and I don't even know why the lawyer's involved. Like, they got out of there. Like, how would they... There's no security cameras. Well, there are, but it's not like now. Like, how would they know they were involved with anything? It was all in the sewers. Like, I don't know. Yeah. It's just a weird little thing that when you rewatch it, you're like, oh, I don't need this part in here.
Yeah.
Just open with the truck.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I even forgot that scene was in here until you brought it up, because I just kind of blocked that moment out when I watched the movie.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't add anything, and it's completely forgettable, because, like, having watched it a year ago or whenever it was, I did not remember that. So when it opened with that, watching it now, I was like, what?
Like, wait, what's this scene again?
I don't remember this, and this doesn't really work with how the movie plays out.
Yeah, it kind of throws you off a little bit.
Yeah.
But thankfully, it's kind of forgettable. I mean, I'll take more Egg Shen, but not like that.
And it was short, so it wasn't like it was a huge, long, annoying scene.
It would have been better if it would have been him doing an interview for Margot for the paper. That would have been better, instead of him talking to a lawyer and showing off his Chinese magic powers, or however he phrases it. You know, old Chinese magic.
Yeah.
Like Palpatine. Showing off his lightning, his blue lightning. Probably, around the same year, probably about the same special effects. But yeah, that scene is, I don't know. It's like the only scene in the movie that just doesn't work.
One of the things that, like, I don't want to say that I was confused by, because, like, I don't know how much you are meant to understand all of the mythology.
You're not.
It felt to me like I feel sometimes watching anime.
Oh.
Like, a lot of times I'll just
go with it. You're like, okay.
Because it's like, I don't really understand this, and I don't always know if I'm supposed to understand it. Because, like, a lot of times it's based on another culture's mythology that they just expect you to know.
Right.
And I don't, so I just go with it. So I kind of got that same feeling with this, but the movie was so enjoyable that I didn't care. Like the head thing. Like, I don't know what that head thing was.
I think it's just... Oh, you got to remember, too, this is John Carpenter. John Carpenter loves his monsters. He loves his creatures.
There was more monsters than I remember, because I remembered the head thing. But like there was the ape thing, and then there was the big sea serpent thing that ate a guy.
Yep, the thing that comes out of the sewers.
That thing appeared and ate somebody and disappeared again.
Yeah, the way I always looked at that is, this is John Carpenter, I think right after The Thing. So this is John Carpenter with his love of monsters and animatronics and practical effects and creatures. I'm sure somewhere there is probably a Chinese or Asian monster or creature that slightly based off of, but I don't care. It's cool. It's like we're dealing with a guy who made a deal with a demon so he could live forever, but his soul is trapped. So of course he's going to have critters and creatures lurking around him, doing his bidding.
Yeah, the whole mythology around Lopan also did not really make a whole lot of sense to me, but again, I just go with it.
Big Trouble's one of those movies where you just kind of go with it. Like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially like once you get toward the end when you're dealing with more of the monsters and like the whole wedding ceremony and how this is supposed to work. Like, you're Jack Burton. You just go with it. You're confused and you don't know what's going on, but you're in for the ride and we're just going to have a good time.
And the scene where they're like, it felt like some sort of metaphysical video game.
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, honestly, that is exactly what I think of too. It's like, are we playing like Nintendo? What are we doing, dog? That's one of those scenes where it's like, no matter who you talk to, everybody's like, I didn't know what was happening, but okay.
Yeah, that's my reaction exactly.
Okay.
I have no idea what's going on.
I don't know, but I'm going to go with it because it's kind of cool. And I think it's supposed to be
crazy. I love that.
I think it's supposed to be like their spiritual projections of like maybe either themselves or maybe him like a demon and like the other guy maybe not a demon. I don't know. Them fighting. But I don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what that is, and you just go with it.
John Carpenter might know, and he just doesn't want to tell us.
Honestly, if I was him, I wouldn't either. Like, no, I'll just let everybody make their theories and just talk about it. It's more fun that way.
Yeah.
Instead of finding out the truth, and you're like, oh, that's lame.
Sometimes things are better left as mysteries.
Yep. I will say, though, this movie bombed. This movie did not do good in the box office. It was not well received at the time. I think it only made $11 million. It did not do well. It like broke John Carpenter. He was so annoyed and upset that this movie just bombed. And then it went on to be a massive cult classic. But so many movies.
Of makes sense. Like I can't see like the average American going into this and loving it.
Yeah, I think, so many movies, especially in the 80s and stuff, that they just weren't, people just didn't know how to take them back then. And then later on, people watch them and you're like, wow, this is amazing. Yeah. Like, this is great. And this is one of those movies, like, it just sank at the box office. Legend was kind of like that too. And nobody really got it. They didn't like it. And then it comes out on VHS. And it just goes nuts. Like, people love it. It's kind of like movies that bomb in the theater now, and the second it hits streaming.
Yeah.
Which, thank God, because, I'm glad this movie became such a cult classic, because it is just so much fun. If they released it into theaters, dude, I'd go every night.
I'd go with you.
I'd go. It'd be so much fun. I would have such a good time.
Just for James Hong, like, he's literally my favorite part of this movie.
Well, the one he plays crotchety old Lopan, and he's all like, "What? What did you say?" And he tries to bite him. No, he tries to bite Gracie. You're just like, I've dealt with people like you. Like, don't bite people. And then he flips the switch and comes out as Lopan, the tall guy, with the nails
giant
and
claws.
the claws who can walk through walls, and just wants to experience life and be flesh again. It's just like...
You could tell he was having fun being that.
Oh, yeah, you could tell. I bet that set was so much fun.
Oh, probably.
You know, you got all these, you know, some of the actors at the time weren't well known and some of them were. And I mean, I bet the sets were amazing, you know, you know, because they built all these sets. And
yeah, you could tell. There was nothing looked fake.
No.
It all looked like an actual physical place.
And I wonder, and I think I'm willing to bet they probably filmed a good chunk of it probably in Chinatown, probably in California somewhere. I bet they probably did.
The outside stuff, it felt real.
Yeah, and like when they're going through the alleys and stuff, like that's not fake. They got to be going through.
Yeah.
I mean, I know like Hollywood and stuff, they have these massive sets that are, you know, you can drive cars through that everything's fake, but it's like, it looks real, man. It looks like they're actually driving down some dirty ass alley and...
I think that's what makes it feel real, is because everything just looked kind of grungy.
Yeah, you know, there's trash everywhere and like the rain and everybody, you know, and everybody's dressed normal. Like they're not in pristine, clean clothes. Everybody looks like they came out the door, they're doing their routine, they're walking around town.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like all the extras look like real people. They don't look like fake people lurking in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like they go through all these different alleys and you like kind of get lost because they're going between buildings and they're going to all these different places and running through buildings and through sewers and, you know, and all that other stuff.
Yeah, everything that happened, especially outside, it felt authentic. I think the fact that things were dirty, the way that people were dressed, it didn't feel like they were acting. It just felt like they were people.
Like they were like, hey, we're going to be filming a movie here. Everybody act normal.
And you don't always get that because a lot of, I don't know why I'm thinking of this because I haven't watched any for a while, but like Hallmark movies, if you watch the people in the background.
I have never watched a Hallmark movie.
I have for the podcast. But it's just, they don't feel real. They feel like they.
Oh, they're as fake as the Hallmark movie.
True, but it like.
They're as fake as their love.
Tell that they're miming a conversation instead of actually talking.
Right. They're over there.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, we need to act like real people. Like, use your hand movements, move your body, move your head. Like, instead of just, get the hell out of my way, I'm late. You know, people walking through and doing their thing.
And I'm sure there are some Hallmark movies that don't feel like that. But just the ones that I've seen, that's why it comes to mind immediately. Just the background actors just don't feel authentic.
Yeah, I've watched a few movies where you kind of like start paying attention to the people in the back and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
What are they doing? Like, who directed this? Why are they making eye contact with the camera?
It's always weird too, because I know there's some sort of, I don't want to say an acting law, but some kind of a rule where if somebody says something on camera, they get paid more.
Yes. If you have a speaking line, you get paid more. And if you don't, then I don't know, maybe you don't even get paid at all.
So I always notice when they interact with somebody in the background, it always feels so weird that they don't say anything.
I'm pretty sure if you have a speaking line, you have to get paid, but I'm pretty sure most extras are not getting paid if they don't have speaking lines. They're either not getting paid at all.
It's a much lower rate.
Yeah, because you're not going to... And they have to be in your credits if they have a speaking line. Because otherwise every extra in the movie would be in the end credits of your movie. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it's something like that. So yeah, you can always tell like when an extra has like one line and you're like, wow, they're really excited to have their one line. That means they're getting paid. They're gonna play this up. While everybody else is back there, can't say anything. Can't say a word. I'm not getting paid. You know, like when you watch restaurant scenes.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, they're adding all the sound later. You know, these people ain't talking.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can always just kind of tell. And it just feels off.
Yeah. There's not a lot of chatter in the background, which there would be.
And there was in this.
Yeah.
Especially in the big, like, I'm thinking of the beginning, the gambling scene. It was noisy.
Yeah, everybody's loud. They're laughing. They're all talking. You know, granted, most of them are all speaking Chinese, and Jack has no idea what they're saying, and neither do we, which is why we're just there.
Yeah.
And Jack's just there to make money. But yeah, everybody's loud and talking, and they're doing their thing, and the animals are making noise, and the vehicles are making noise, and like the whole place is loud.
Yeah. The animals are another reason why it felt more real. Just having that background noise.
Yeah, the geese out there geesing and the pigs squealing.
It just gives
And
the
dogs
movie an
and-
atmosphere.
Yeah, atmosphere. Yeah, they don't make a lot of movies like that anymore. Anymore, you watch movies and you're like, none of these people are on the same set.
Yeah.
It's like Multiverse of Madness at the end. You're like, none of these people are on the same set.
That reminds me of, what was it? There was some interview that Elizabeth Olsen was doing. I don't remember what the conversation was about, but they showed her a picture of John Krasinski.
I was just going to
She
say.
had no idea who he was.
Yep.
They were like, you were in a movie together.
Yeah, he wasn't on set with them.
I figured because of the scene that they're in.
Yeah.
It's like they probably did
No.
not film together and
No.
she never met him.
No, they weren't on set together. And that's why you watch it and you're like, none of this is real.
Yeah.
There is nothing between these people. They're like, oh, Mr. Fantastic's right there and look that way. Instead of them all being on set. I mean, I know it was like during COVID and everything, but it's still happening in movies, even after COVID, that you're like, none of these people are together.
Yeah.
This is why there's no chemistry.
Yeah. It helps so much to, like, even for voice acting. Like, you can, I feel like the movies where you can tell everyone is in the booth talking to each other, it just feels more realistic than the ones where they record their lines separately and then somebody else puts them all together.
Right. Yeah, when they're in like sound recording booths, like you can tell if they're all standing together acting off of each other as
Yeah.
opposed to just reading lines.
Yeah, it helps so much.
Well, and plus, like when you watch like movies like this, they're touching, they're patting each other's shoulders, they're handing each other stuff. When you're not on the same set, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You're cutting away because he's not there.
Yeah. Like, it's not something that a lot of people even really notice.
Until
But
it's
even if
really
you-
bad.
Even if you don't notice, something just feels
The vibes are off.
off. Yeah.
Because it's like there's no chemistry. There's nothing in their eyes
Yeah.
that says they're looking at another person. I mean, it's kind of like, it's not really the same as like when you're acting off of like a tennis ball. This is the Balrog. Act afraid. You know, I feel like that's completely different because when it comes to like CGI monsters, because like, well, you know, there's no dragons. We're obviously not going to be able to act with a dragon, but I should be able to act with my crew, my coworkers.
Yeah.
We should all be on the same set. It always reminds me of Mummy 2. Have you ever seen Mummy 2?
Yeah, but it's been so long.
Yeah, it's bad. Don't watch it again. But how Brandon Fraser and The Rock, you know, he plays the Scorpion King. They never met. They filmed on completely different sets in completely different states and just mashed it together. I mean, granted, his character's 95. Well, by the end, he was almost all CGI. But they even asked Brendan Fraser, like, about The Rock. And, yeah, it was The Rock, right? Yeah, it's The Rock. And he was like, yeah, we never met. We were never on set together. And, I mean, I would say that's part of the problem. But that's not the problem with that scene. So, that scene's just bad.
It's been too long since I've seen it. I don't really remember
Watch, like,
it.
the first, like, half hour and then turn off.
I was going to ask, do you know what is up? Like, I know each of the henchmen have, like, their signature power. What is the point of the guy who blows up?
Oh, Thunder?
Okay, I didn't remember which was
Yeah, that's Thunder. Because Lightning is the guy who Raiden's based off of. He's the leader. Rain is the hot one with the hair. And then the big guy's Thunder. I think he just got so mad that he blew up.
But, like, what is the... Like, if that's a real power, what is the point of the power if you die?
Well, you'll notice, like, earlier in the movie, he swells up a couple times and gets stronger. Like, when Jack jumps on his back, he, like, you know, and the buttons pop off his shirt, and then he gets Jack, you know, launches him off his back.
Okay.
When they're trying to stop him. So I think he just buffs out when he's pissed. And then he saw Lopan dead, and he was just, what's he going to live for now? And as the others are, well, they're not dead at this point. But I think he just was like, and, you know, pop. Yeah, I don't know. That's still another one of those things. You're like, what? Okay.
It's one of those things where you have a superpower that seems more like a liability than an actual power.
I always took it as, my boss is dead. I failed my job. I'm just gonna, I guess, die. I failed, and I'm really mad about it, so I'm just gonna, like, swell up until I blow up.
That makes about as much sense as most of the stuff that happened in the movie that I was confused by.
Yeah. That was always my take on it. I could be completely wrong, but that's how I always took it.
So now that Lo Pan is dead, what happens to all the monsters?
I don't know.
You saw the one, like, hiding on the truck.
Yeah. Well, him and Jack are... Maybe it spills into the comic book, actually. I don't know. I think it's called Old Man Jack. But, I don't know. Maybe they become friends. Maybe he was misunderstood. Maybe he just needed, like, to go to, like, the dog groomer and get a little haircut and get the mats brushed out of his fur. I would assume they would all return to the underworld.
Well, since he's on the semi, I'm just kind of imagining that he's going to jump off in, like, South Dakota or Montana and become the Bigfoot.
Maybe. I always took that as a, the monster always comes back at the end. Mm. Like, there's always a hand.
Yeah.
Or, like, the eyes open. I always took it as just you think everything's fine and dandy. The hero's won, but oops.
Yeah.
Oops, he got on the truck.
If that had happened today, it would have been like they were setting up a sequel.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, I mean, I don't think at that time they were, but...
I didn't get that feeling. It just felt like the thing to do at the end of the
movie.
Like
I said, I'm sure that it probably... Maybe it was addressed in the comic books. I don't know. But I always just took it as, back in the 80s, all those movies, they all had that little hook at the end, like Halloween, Michael Myers is gone, and every movie, like I said, hand pops out. Like, and the Ninja Turtles, Shredder's hand pops out. Sorry, spoiler alert, you haven't seen that. But, that's just how movies ended. It's just always a little hook at the end.
Mm-hmm. The thing was so ugly.
I hated it as a kid. It was just terrifying. I'm like, it's got like a duck's mouth and it looks like an orangutan. And it's kind of weird. It's got teeth and it doesn't blink. Oh, gross.
I felt like it reminded me of something, but I couldn't think of what it was reminding me of.
It kind of reminded me of the Muppets in Labyrinth. But it could have all been... I mean, and who knows? Back then, What's-His-Face did all those... Jim Henson did all that kinds of stuff. Maybe Jim Henson helped create the creatures for this movie. Who knows?
I don't know. I guess maybe the body does sort of remind me of Ludo from that movie, but the face is the thing that looked maybe familiar, but I wouldn't know what I was thinking of.
Yeah, I mean, and it could be something that's based off of, something Asian, but I don't know. I just always took it as it's a creepy monster who makes a lot of weird noises and walks funny. And at one point, it kind of looked like he was squatting to go number 2, but he wasn't.
I mean, if they were basing it off apes, that is kind of one of their default positions, the squat.
The squat, yeah. I just always took it as, it's a monster. Okay. Kind of like the floating head with all the eyeballs. I'm like, it's a spy. Okay. And Lo Pan can see through all its eyes.
That also reminded me of something, but I don't know what. It also had a weirdly human mouth, except for the eyeball.
Well, and it had an eyeball on its tongue.
Everything about that thing was weird.
Yeah, it was.
It was like, it didn't look real at all.
No, it was claymation, I think. And then, they had to make it look like it was floating around, and it didn't quite work as well in the hallways and stuff, like you could tell. But, like, later when it's, like, on the ground chilling, it looked better. When it wasn't, like, actively moving around.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like I said, this was after The Thing, and, John Carpenter loves his weird-looking creatures.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, granted, the creatures in The Thing were a little bit better, but I don't think... Well, I don't know what the budgets were for these movies, actually. Actually, no, I do. The budget for this was $19 to $25 million. And then it only made $11 million. That's sad.
Apparently there was an episode of the 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles TV series that used concepts from this film, but renamed the antagonist Lo Pan to Ho Chan, and replaced the storm figure Rain with Wind, and James Hong reprised his performance as the principal villain character.
Oh, damn, I'm going to have to look that up. Like, they brought in Wind. He's like the long-lost cousin. And the next one will be like snow and storm and
Apparently, Taika Waititi cited this film as an influence on Thor Ragnarok.
Okay.
I'm trying to think.
I mean, they're both kind of wild, but
Yeah. It says there was a 2012 parody music video of the song Gangnam Style entitled Low Pan Style and featured the storyline and characters from the movie, including a cameo from James Hong.
oh my goodness. I love Jing. He's getting it wherever he can get it. He's like, you want me to come back and do a little Gundam Style as Low Pan? Sure thing. Pay me.
There was an episode of the show Regular Show
No, it's not surprising.
Fortune Cookie, featuring a villain called the Warlock who looked like Lo Pan and was voiced by James Hong.
Oh my goodness. I love it. I love it. Good for him. Well, I mean, Lo Pan is such an iconic villain. Like, he looks so cool, and he's got character, and he's a creep. Like, why not?
He really is very iconic. Like, the character and James Hong.
Yeah.
He made this movie for me. Like, he's what I think of when I think of this movie, even more than Kurt Russell.
I always just think of Kurt Russell standing there eating a bowl of noodles looking confused. Or when he's arguing on the phone and he's like arguing about his truck and his insurance, and he's just like, I don't know, as an act of God. He just can't explain it. Or when he's going off on a rant about after they encounter Lo Pan and he's yelling about it and he's like a light coming out of his mouth and blah blah blah, and he's just done. I'm like, oh, Jack.
That scene with the light coming out of his mouth, that was really well done. I don't know if that was, it must have been some kind of a puppet, but the way it was moved, it seemed so real.
And it's like light, like you're not like, that's not like, it's not like fake, like it's like they shined a flashlight or a spotlight or something behind. And
yeah, I mean, for everything that you can point to that looked cheesy, there was an equal amount of stuff that looked really good in this movie.
Well, and like the fights, the like in the alley with the gangs, like they got the machetes and the other group has the machine guns, and yeah, they're kind of cheesy, but they're filmed like those old kung fu movies, and you just love it because, the background actors, some of them are giving their best and some of them aren't. But it's just, and the way it's cut, but it's just so good. You don't care. You're just like, these two guys are just butchering the hell out of each other, and that guy's got a machete, and like, when they first show up and like they're stuck in the truck and Jack's got his little knife, and then he's like, they have machetes and machine guns. Like, we can't win this fight. I love everything about it. It's just so good. It's so weird.
Yeah.
And just a little off kilter. But, again, though, it's all background actors, and they're all, like I said, some of them are doing better job than others. Like, I've watched this movie enough times to pay attention to the background fighting. Sometimes you're like, what you doing? Who are you fighting? There's nobody there. You're fighting the air. But it has its cheesy moments and its kind of corny moments, but I think that's just kind of the point, I will say, though, the cinematography, though, when they go to the brothel or whatever you want to call it, where all the human trafficking is happening, and they're driving that old car in the rain, and just like all the colors and the rain coming down, and it's one of the few movies where I watch it that I'm like, I would 100% believe it's raining. Because, like, she gets out of the car and goes to the other car and she's soaked. Her hair's a mess. Like, so often they go in the rain and they're not wet. And they're soaked. I mean, granted, one scene later and they're dry, kind of like Star Wars. You're like, wait a minute, what happened? But, and they're sitting in the car and you can hear the raindrops on the car. You can see the rain going down the windows. It's like, I would believe I'm sitting in the car in the rain.
Yeah.
It's just so convincing the way the whole thing's filmed and the way they're driving. And you can hear the rain on the tires. It's just so often you get scenes like that where you're like, that car is not being rained on. That is not, the way the water's falling, it's just not convincing. But like, I 100% believe when they're out running in the rain or when they're driving in the rain, like, I totally buy it. Yeah. That it's heavily raining and it's, everybody's wet and miserable. And Jack gets in there and his glasses are wet, and it's just so good.
I feel like these days people they're too afraid of making their actors look unattractive.
Yes.
And like that makes it seem so much less realistic. Mm-hmm. Like they have to have their makeup perfectly done, their hair perfectly coiffed.
Yeah.
Just let them get soaked and look miserable.
Well, and these days, for all the money they put into movies, there's so many bad wigs. There's nothing more distracting than a bad wig. Because you're just like, wow, what is that on her head? Or bad haircuts. I've watched a few movies where I'm like, what did you do to deserve this? Like, at least in this movie, and granted, it takes place in the 80s, they all got that 80s hair, they got the 80s style, they got the 80s makeup, but it all looks good. Yeah. Like, everybody looks good in this movie, but they also look like they've gone through a hell of a time. You know, they're wet, they're dirty. Jack gets lipstick smeared on his face. Like, I love that.
That was another point where I felt like this has to be a parody of something.
And then she rubs the lipstick off because she's like, you can't be talking shit with your face looking like that. And even like at the beginning when they're at the restaurant, he borrows a robe and his clothes are strung up to dry. Like, so many movies would just ignore little details like that. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, they were out in the rain and they were in a fight. And they were crawling through the sewer. So, of course, he washed his clothes and he's got them hanging up to dry and he's wearing somebody's house coat. It's like, I wouldn't want you, like, have you been crawling? You smell. You smell like you've been crawling through the sewer. So we're going to wash your clothes. You stink. It's just, yeah, all the details, all the little details that go into it.
Like the details in the last fight scene, the way it was lit and the way the statues, it looked like neon.
It always reminded me, for some reason, it always made me think of a casino. I don't know why. Just all the neon lights.
I suppose I could see like a themed casino.
Yeah, I think it's just the neon lights, and it's just so, it kind of takes you back a moment because you're like, what? Because you have other parts of this palace with all the Buddha statues. I know it's not Buddha, but whatever it's supposed to be. And you've got like all the red and gold and all the ornate carvings and all the details and the wallpaper and the furniture and just everything. And like the few little things of technology, like the phones with all this like ancient Chinese and Asian patterns and the flowers and all that stuff. And then you get to the final fight scene in this massive area with the neon and you're like, huh, what is this? This is different. Like, I don't get it, but I like it. And I do like at the end, when he knocks all those statues over, they had like one shot to film that. Those gold, like soldier statues that all fall when they kill Lopan. They all fall and break. Mm-hmm. They said they had like one shot. And I was just like, it's like lining up them dominoes. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the final fight down there, it's very different.
I loved the neon.
Mm-hmm. Like, it's such a stark contrast to everything else.
Yeah.
Everything else, like, when you're outside is all rooted and very real.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, then you get the palace, which is very ornate and over the top. Mm-hmm. And then you get the final battle, and you're like, what? This is so... It's like each set is so dramatically different. Yeah. And amazing in its own way. Mm-hmm. Like, the set designers for this movie, like, bravo. Like, you nailed it.
Yeah, they're all so different, but it works as a whole.
Yeah, it blends. Especially once you get to the fight with, like, the little... with the thumbs and, like, the samurais fighting in, like, the light shadows. You're like, okay, I guess this does all fit together.
That was so bizarre. The only thing I could think of was video games. I don't know if that's what they were going for.
I kind of feel like maybe they were, because that's my thought, too. I was just like, as a little kid, you're like, it's like me. When I'm playing video games, I look like that. Same facial expressions and everything. It's like concentration and anger.
I love the way he was standing there, like moving his thumbs with the big
noises,
claws.
And the noises he makes, his high-pitched voice, Lopan's voice, when he's making noises, and when it's just so funny, and it works so well with him and Egg Shen because they're so dramatically different when they meet up. Mm-hmm. Because Lopan's tall and clean, and he's got his robes, and he looks all regal. And you got little Egg Shen. They've been crawling through the sewers, and and he don't care how he looks. And I think he kind of describes himself as like a sorcerer or whatever, because he comes up with that potion that makes everybody feel like they could take on the world. That scene in the elevator is just so good. And this movie has one of my favorite F-bombs, because PG-13 movies can have one F-bomb. And when they find that elevator, and it's got the beautiful wallpaper, like the covering over it, and they're like, is it hollow? And he's like, it's hollow. He goes, fuck it. He just pulls out his knife and cuts it. It's just so quick, but you're like, God, I love it.
Yeah.
It's just like he's just done. And I love how Wang Chi just, like, every time there's like lettering on the wall, he lies to him what it says. Like before they get stuck in the elevator that takes them down to the water where all those corpses are hanging. He's like, what does that say? And he's like, oh, it says hell of boiling water or something. He's like, is that really what it says? And he's like, no, it says like exit or something like that. He gets at him every chance he can get. He just tells him the wrong thing just to f with him. I love it. It's just like they're dynamic. They play off each other so well. Yeah. And then, Jack at the end, gets all excited for the fight and knocks himself out. It's just so typical. It's like, oh, Jack. The whole fight's going on. He's like Frodo in The Hobbit, knocks himself out and misses almost everything. And then when he does wake up, he almost gets killed by one soldier, and he's just struggling. Should be Jack Burton the struggle.
Not that they should do this, but I kind of would like more with Jack Burton, just to see what else he gets up to.
I've thought about reading the graphic novels just to see how did they continue this story, with him? Because it's called like Old Man Jack or something. And it's his life like after this. And I think like in the graphic novels, like Lopan might come back or something. I don't remember. But yeah, I mean, I'd say if it was a few years ago, because I think Kurt Russell, what is he? He's in his 70s, right? He's 73. Not saying he couldn't pull off another move, another one, but I'd just be afraid if they tried to do a sequel or something that it just wouldn't.
It's one of those things like it would be fun, but like, do we really want that?
I think an animated series would be really good, especially if not an adult one. Not like Spawn or something where you should be 18 and over to watch it, but more of a more mature one. Yeah. Not like the Beetlejuice cartoon, which was, for little kids. Something more mature, continuing adventures, like with him.
They could make an anime, actually.
They could, especially, you bring like Wang Chi back and Jack and see, what other kind of crap they can get into. Or if Lopan does come back again looking for revenge, or maybe Thunder pulls himself together and resurrects after blowing up. Or maybe they have to come back and find all the monsters that they left down there.
Oh, that's a good plan.
Or something.
Be like a Monster of the Week story with all the things that escaped after
Lopan died. Jack realized the thing caught on, was on the back of his truck, and then he goes back like, yo, we didn't take care of everything that was down there. There's still stuff down there. And it starts coming up through the sewers or whatever. Yeah. It's the kind of movie where you could easily do some kind of follow-up without ruining the impact of the first movie. Yeah. And then maybe we can bring Wang Chi's fiance into it and actually give her a speaking line. It's like my only flaw with this movie.
I was going to say, did she even say anything?
She has like 2 words through the whole movie. I know she's gagged and like comatose through most of it. Yeah. But even as a kid, I'm like, why isn't the hot lady talking? Like, can we give her some lines? Can she say something? It's like my only flaw with this movie, and it's not that big enough flaw that I get that I would ever, let it ruin anything for me. It has always stuck out that I'm like, but I can't complain too much about female characters because Margot and Gracie are great. Like they're both strong. They're both great characters, so it kind of balances out. I just wish she would have had a little bit more to do, but she's just there. Yeah. She's the heroine they're trying to rescue, so.
The damsel in distress.
The damsel in distress is what I meant. Yeah, that's like the only weird thing is that once you watch it, you're like, wait a minute. Did she say? Because I know there's like one point where she snaps out of it and she's kind of struggling with Lopan because, he's trying to stab her and, she's trying to get him to stop. But I mean, that's kind of it. But there's a lot of characters in this movie, so I suppose they did what they could. Yeah. And maybe she can't act. I don't know.
I guess I don't really even know who she was.
I looked her up at one point. I think she was mostly a model. I think she did some like little B movies, but not very much.
It looks like she has 7 credits.
Yeah, so I don't think she did just too much, which is too bad because she is gorgeous, but...
Nothing after 93.
Yeah. But, I mean, she's good in the movie for what they give her, so... Especially the odd, like, wedding scene where he's trying to decide who he's going to marry. That scene's another one of those where you just go with it. You're like, I don't get what's going on or why we're doing this and why we're floating up to touch the orb and why the dragon's eyes are lighting up and why everybody's putting on a show. But okay.
That's basically my reaction to most of this movie. I don't get it, but okay.
Yeah, all right. It works. Like, I'll go with it.
It's entertaining.
Yes.
Sometimes that's all you need.
And, and all the other characters except for Jack seem to know what's going on, so I trust them.
Yeah.
Egg Shan and Wang Chi, they seem to be on top of it. Even Eddie seems to know what he's doing, so it's all right. I do like the poster, though. It's got Gracie kind of laying there like she's the damsel in distress. And I'm like, and she's more likely to kick butt than Jack is sometimes. I've thought about buying that poster for the wall, but I'm not the biggest fan of it. I hate how Jack looks.
The poster doesn't really show what the movie is.
I think that's kind of the point, because like what we were talking about earlier, since it's got such a massive Asian cast, it's kind of like a bait and switch.
Kind of.
Even though Jack's in the whole movie, so.
Yeah.
Except for like the scenes like with Lo Pan and, when they're showing what he's doing while they're looking for him.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise he's in the whole movie. But yeah, it is kind of like a little bait and switch.
I mean, the poster is kind of iconic because it's very recognizable as to what it is.
And it's very 80s.
Yeah, it is.
Most posters in the 80s were kind of like that, but like I want something else. I want one with Wang Chi on it. I always thought that Dennis Dunn was just so cute as Wang Chi.
He was good, yeah.
His fight scenes were good. You could tell he knew what he was doing. And again, some of the editing, like the one fight, like everybody lands on a table. Everyone. Like he kicks them and everybody like lands and breaks on a table. I'm like, granted, I know they're in like a warehouse or something, but still, it's just one of those things you watch it a few times and you're like, okay, what's with the editing here, man?
It was a table factory.
It was something. It's just one of those funny little nitpicks that when you watch it enough, you're just like, what? But then again, you're like, okay.
I mean, there's enough weird stuff in this movie that did not even register with me. So
no, like I said, you've watched it as many times as I have.
Yeah.
Like I said, you learn to watch the details and the background and all the little things. I will say though, like the costumes for this movie are just spot on. Like the wedding, when they're doing the wedding, the way Gracie and Mei Lin, is that her name? Are dressed up.
Malwin?
Yeah, just like the headpieces and the makeup and the dresses. Like it's just so
Mao Yin.
It's just gorgeous the way they look. It's just so beautiful. And like I said, and then Lo Pan looks great. He's styling.
Of course.
And it's just the way everybody's dressed is just so iconic. It's also very 80s.
Yeah.
A lot of tweed jackets.
And Jack's wife beater.
I love that wife beater. I love that shirt. It's so iconic.
I was going to say, it's iconic in a completely different way.
And he's rocking the mullet, and I don't even care.
It works for him.
It does. It looks great. He's one of the few men that can pull that hairstyle off and look fantastic.
I haven't really thought about it before, but you're kind of right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't really think of any other people who have mullets that I'm like, yeah, that works.
Well, and it's the right amount of mullet. It's not too much.
Yeah.
You can go too far, and you're like, oh.
Any longer, it's not a mullet anymore.
Right. Now you just kind of look kind of weird. But, he looks great. And I will say, every time I watch this movie, especially like before the big battles and stuff starts, whenever they're in the restaurant, it always makes me hungry. Because I'm always like, that looks delicious. Can I pull up a chair? I would like to have some dinner. Not good with chopsticks, but I would like some noodles, please. Though, to balance out this movie makes me hungry. The scene, though, with all the floating bodies, that doesn't. Kind of ruins it
I was gonna
afterwards.
say, where are you going with this sentence?
I will say though, the elevator though is one of the scariest things. When they're in that elevator and it starts to fill up with water, and they have to escape through the top. Like literally, like watching that as a kid, I was like, this is the scariest part of the movie because elevators are scary anyway. And now this one is a trap. And they have to and Wang Chi's so much shorter that he goes underwater first. Poor guy. And then, they go through the top, which doesn't really, or they go through a window. They get the window, I think, on the side open, or they get the doors open. That's it. And, they're they're underwater, and all those bodies are hanging there underwater, and they're also fleshy. I am like, that's gotta be real. Not real dead people, but they must have used animal muscle and skin or something, because that is juicy flesh. That looks real. And back then they did use that stuff. When they made The Thing and when they made Alien, they actually used animal. They'd go to butcher places and get all the organs and all that weird stuff. So I should have looked that up, because I'm like, that's got to be that's not fake. That's real bits and pieces of things. It's just so fleshy. And I wonder, because in Poltergeist they used real skeletons because they were cheaper than fake skeletons. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if they were fake or real skeletons too. Probably fake. I don't know. It's funny how they used to make movies. Real skeletons, dead animals. Like Texas Chainsaw with all the dead, rotting animal corpses and food and stuff. Got it made now. Everything's fake or CGI.
Yeah. Less realistic, but I think I prefer it in that instance.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Kind of loses a little bit of its charm. It's kind of like what it
the charm of dead animals.
Just the realism. When you're repulsed by something, you're really ew, gross. That's disgusting. It's kind of like, what movie did I watch? It was some horror movie. And it's CGI blood. I was like, boo! I am like, that's so, just get the Caro syrup and just throw it at the wall. Why did we CGI that blood? I know it's easy. You don't have to clean it up, but still. It's just takes, especially if it's a horror movie, the second the CGI blood breaks out, you're like, oh, damn. This isn't scary anymore. This is fake. It's all fake. Boo.
Well, I think that's about all I've got for Big Trouble in Little China.
Same.
I'm glad you introduced it to me.
I am too. I think it's a movie everybody should watch, especially if you like a good, fun, silly action flick.
Yeah, it's very silly, but it's very fun.
If you like 80s movies, you gotta watch it.
Yeah. Oh, the soundtrack too. I loved the soundtrack.
The soundtrack's so good. I think I read that actually John Carpenter did most of it.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think I realized that he was also a composer.
I don't know if he composed it or if maybe he helped produce it, but I know there was another person's name on there. John Carpenter and Alan Howarth were the music. So, but yeah, it was interesting to see his name on there. Actually, years ago, Mondo came out with a vinyl soundtrack for Big Trouble in Little China. It's not available anymore, though. I'm really hoping they release it sometime, because that would be awesome to have.
Anyways, I think that will probably be all for this episode. I'm sure we'll be back in the future for something else, so until then.
See you later.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My Linktree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.